What do you say? Should we start? Are we ready to? Are we waiting for more people to arrive? Or
I say we should start.
we should get started. Okay. I'm Frederick Curtin, and I'm the filmmaker.
And I'm Leilani Farha, and I'm the advocate.
And this is Pushback Talks on Twitter Spaces. Because we are so modern and so up to date, we're trying all the new tools out there. But I mean, the whole idea is to connect with our listeners, give people a chance to speak straight to us, ask us questions, and we will be able to hear your voices, which is also nice because podcast is in some way a one-way direction thing. So it's nice to hear you. Anybody who wants to join in, just say hello.
Yeah.
So, this title, Blackstone, Oatly and Spanx, The Art of Selling Human Rights Violations. Isn't that a very provocative title, Leilani? Can you really say that and still, I mean, we're talking about fine companies. Oatly, they make oat milk, they do a lot for the planet. And Spanx, they are doing underwear for women, and it's like they're uplifting women with cool underwear.
Supposedly.
And now you're mixing them with human rights violations. How do you think?
Yeah, how does it work? I don't know if everyone listening in knows that Blackstone, the largest residential real estate private equity firm in the world, that really established the terrible model that we're now living with, that allows housing to be treated as an investment. This firm, mega firm, is buying up all sorts of enviro-friendly women's empowerment companies, including Oatly, Spanx. They also bought up Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon's cool production company. They bought a big company that also owns Bumble. Bumble is a dating app headed by a young, vibrant CEO, female. So the question is, why are they doing this? And I mean, we know that for them, everything's about the bottom line. So they see money in all of this. But the question becomes, are they greenwashing themselves? And does buying these companies sort of make their sins, atone for their sins? That's the question.
I don't think that for them buying some oat milk company really changes the content of being Blackstone. And I think you're right. Today, the big COP meeting starts in Glasgow. And one of the big issues is, of course, greenwashing. And I think if we want to fight this very destructive part of capitalism that is affecting our planet big time and also violating human rights, we have to make the connections and we have to follow the money. But we have some speakers here. So let's see who is online here to talk to us. I see here, from Nuevo León, Abogada Yuca Perdida, Nuevo León, La Señora Las Casas. Can you speak out? Can we hear you?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, my English is not very good. I'm from Mexico.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'm from Monterrey City. Well, I'm not from here, but I'm living here, and I work with housing rights here in Mexico. And when I read the name of this space, I just thought about and think about the problems that we are having in some places in Latin America with the tourism. For example, right now in Mexico, we have this huge government project, but also with some companies and private money called the Tren Maya, Mayan train, which is going to be a long road across the Yucatan Peninsula, and the main objective of this project is to bring all the tourism and improving the tourism in Mexico, but also is going to generate a lot of forced evictions in the whole area, mostly against Mayan people. So we are facing this, but the problem is that I think obviously the money is one of the biggest reasons why they are doing this kind of things, but also I think it's kind of ideology at the same time, because when we speak with some people from the government and the companies which are on the back of this project, we see that they really believe that they are doing a good thing for the country. I mean, they really believe that this is the way to develop a country, and even if they are accepting that they are to evict and like 3,000 people from their homes. So yeah. I think it's also the
sorry. Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, what we know from this modern time in history is that when you have a project that you want to make a lot of money out of, you need to sell it and you need to package it in a way so it sounds like it's good for everyone. And that's basically, now we talked about greenwashing. So they're using the same method. They are dressing this bid in a way so it looks fancy. And then they sell these visions to journalists, to politicians. They're selling the language to do it. So it's so what you have to do to fight this is to create a counter language and actually to also to explain why this is bad for Mexico and why it's bad for the people. Leilani?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's part of, you know, why human rights is so important, because it offers governments a framework that they should use when they're conceiving of projects and trying to figure out how to create better sustainable communities. If you use a human rights framework, you know that you can't evict indigenous populations from their lands, for example, that's a violation, and that in fact you have to engage those populations to figure out a way to do your development without harming them and without violating their human rights. But this is so not understood yet. So we're still at the beginning of moving forward the right to housing and getting engagement by governments with it so that they understand that it's not just language. It is language, it's important language, but it's more than that. It's actually guideposts for how to govern. I think there's probably other speakers. I saw that one of my shift team members, Julieta Peruca, was a speaker at one point, but now I see she's a listener. So I don't know if Julieta, you want to jump in? Invite to speak. I don't know. I don't know how this thing works.
No, but thank you for calling in from Mexico. And just to you, is that we are actually there will be a release of Push, the documentary in Mexico. It's been delayed because of the pandemic, but the release of the film in Mexico will be now in the beginning of February next year. But now I can see that Julieta Peruca is on there. Hola, Julieta, how are you?
Hola, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I'm in good company.
Yeah, this is great.
So, what I understand, you work. I mean, you're also a part of the Push the Film. We get to know you there, but now you're working on the climate meeting up in Glasgow. What are you doing these days?
I mean, I'm currently now doing a lot of really interesting research on how financialization is actually affecting climate change in the area of housing. And I mean, it's maybe something that we haven't been focusing enough on, but really taking the view of not only how financialization is affecting the right to housing, but how it's actually contributing to our total output of global greenhouse emissions. I mean, just to give you a few statistics, now that we're here, we know that the built environment accounts for around 38% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is a huge number. So now that we're in this COP26 moment and we're hearing all of these governments make these lofty promises around climate change, we aren't hearing so many of them talk about how we need to address financialization in the area of housing to limit our global greenhouse emissions. Just to give you a sense of it, there are, I mean, and these numbers are so huge, so they're really hard to grasp, but there are around 255 billion meters squared of buildings that currently exist in the world. And we're adding roughly 5.5 billion meters squared, which is the size of Paris, more or less, every single week. So every single week, we're building enough buildings that amounts to the size of Paris. And then when we step back, we think, who are these buildings for? Are they for those folks that are living in homelessness, or those folks that are living in unaffordable or crowded housing, or are they being used for investors just to accrue wealth or profit?
So you mean people are actually building houses not to live in them?
I mean, that's what we see with financialization. What we're trying to get is to figure out governments really need to regulate the amount of buildings that are being built and to ensure that what is being built is to meet the demand of the most vulnerable and not just to stand vacant, just to accrue profits.
Yeah, and Julieta, I think the statistics you gave are so helpful because
I think everyone thinks part of financialization, which I think we need to start focusing a little bit more on. We also hear a lot of governments talking about how we need to build more supply, but in actual fact, we don't really think that supply is going to address the housing crisis, and it's definitely not going to help with the climate crisis. So those are two issues that need to be looked at together moving forward.
That's cool. We have two more speakers who want to join us here. I see if I can find you here. It's Javier Versat. I don't know where you're based, but you write in French. Javier, can you join in?
Hello everybody.
Hi.
Hello. Who are you?
I'm calling from France, close to Paris, and I just discovered this conversation, and I just wanted to jump in just to share the fact that right now in Calais, on the border of France with the sea, just in front of Great Britain, there is a hunger strike going on with 3 people since 22 days, because they want to oppose the fact that for years now, more than 15 years, people in Calais area waiting for an opportunity to cross the channel are daily harassed, and their tents are destroyed. Sometimes pepper is put on their food.
Crazy.
Yeah. Thank you, Javier, for calling in. And Leilani, you were there as a UN Special Rapporteur in Calais, so you actually been there to the camp, even if it was a few years ago.
Yeah. Julieta and I actually were in Calais together when I was UN Rapporteur, and the conditions up there are really horrific. We met many people who were hoping to make it across the channel to England, who had positioned themselves there. It's quite sad, actually. Had positioned themselves up there so that they could actually see the UK as a dream place to get to as migrants and refugees, who were harassed, as the speaker said, Javier, daily, who were being forced. They would pitch a tent, and every 24 hours they would be forced to move. I hadn't heard of this putting pepper in their food, but frankly, nothing surprises me about the tragedy that's happening up in Calais. It seems, politicians end up treating it as a political issue rather than understanding that these folks have human rights and just need some dignity, just to live, just to survive. I also wanted to comment on Julieta's intervention about climate change. I found the statistics she gave really helpful. Because in our work on the human right to housing, we're always being told, the solution is to build more housing, build. And as Julieta rightly pointed out, not only is building not actually reaching the people who most need it, but it's also killing the planet. And so my only concern is that if we start saying, well, everything that has to be built has to be green, I do worry that those engaged, the private sector will say, it's too expensive to build green. And then they'll try to pass those costs on to the tenants who won't be able to afford it, for example, including refurbishment, not just new buildings, but refurbishment. So that's my one concern. And I hope they're talking about that at COP26, although I don't know if they will.
I can see that Diego Mendiburu is here. I think it says here that you are at the Cambridge University. Can you hear us, Diego?
Yes, I can hear you.
Welcome. So what are you up to? Are you in Cambridge or are you somewhere else?
Yes, I am currently at Cambridge University. I'm studying a master's in tech policy.
Cool. So, are you listening of Pushback Talks? Have you been listening to our podcast?
I just joined you because I found the name of the conversation interesting, but I was just hearing you guys.
It's fine. I mean, we need new friends. We love our old friends, but new friends are kind of hotter in some ways, you know. But tell me, what are you up to? What are you working on?
I'm just beginning the process of doing research and trying to do like our final project is some kind of consultancy for one organization that we might choose to work with. So I'm very interested in regulating big tech, or especially from the perspective of developing countries. What can we do to regulate big tech, even though if obviously they are not based in our country, but they are indeed big markets for them. So that's my passion to talk about those topics.
What are your roots?
I'm from Mexico.
Mexico is today. It's like our country today. That's cool. Welcome. Diego, to you, look up Push the Film. You should see it because then you will understand what we are talking about. But also look up Pushback Talks. It's on all platforms. That's the podcast we've been doing for a year or so. And this is like a little bit of a promotional and get in touch with our patrons and so on. But welcome and thank you for showing up.
I will search for that very much.
And we have Cypris on. So maybe you're out there also somewhere. Or did I lose her? We have to look for some more. See, now she went to be, but I will look for someone else. Victoire. That's a cool handle. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Uh-huh.
Hello. Who are you? It's a very secret handle you have. So.
Oh, okay. I just randomly joined this conversation because I find the name interesting.
Where are you? Where are you based?
I'm in Vietnam.
Okay. Welcome. So it's late by night now. So in Vietnam, you have the same problems that we share all over the world, with a huge investment into people's homes and makes life quite expensive. So what part of Vietnam are you based in?
I'm in Hanoi, the capital.
So it's quite an expensive city these days, isn't it?
Yes, so expensive.
Yeah. And do you know who are buying all their homes in your town?
In my country, so many people try to get a home like before they turn to the age of 30, but they often do not have enough resource to afford it. They often have to take a loan from the bank or from their parents or from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've been following a little bit what's happening in Vietnam and in Hanoi in terms of affordable housing. I'm really glad you joined us because before the pandemic, the organization I'm working with called The Shift, we were hoping we could make it to Vietnam to meet with people to learn more about how crazy expensive it is and how the housing is basically being sold off to investors, both regional investors and foreign investors. So I'm really happy to be hearing from you. And are you living in rental accommodation yourself?
I rent an apartment right now. Yeah, because like most of people here, I cannot afford a house right now.
Right. And is your rent affordable?
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, not obviously.
Yeah, thank God it's affordable.
Right.
Yeah. It's so nice of you to join us here. And if you have time, look out for pushthefilm.com. There is a trailer, the website, where you can also find the film. And I think it will be relevant also for Vietnam. It's the same stuff happening all over the world. So, but thank you for joining us. Let's see, we have coming in here somebody who presents themselves as 22 pumpkins. Are you out there?
Hey. Yes, hello. No, I don't have anything to say. I just joined as a speaker back when there was audio issues. So I just wanted to test the way it works. But
that's cool. So where are you based?
Sweden, actually.
Sweden.
Whereabouts?
Karlskoga.
Okay, that's out in Värmland. It's a cool place.
Yes, I agree. It's a nice place.
Have you seen the film, Push the Film?
Yeah, I saw it on SVT back when it first showed. and then I started following you on Twitter and follow us as well. I'm not a patron yet because I don't have an income. I'm a student, but I will become a patron once I have money.
That's cool. We'll love to have you here, and nice to hear your voice also.
I have nothing like interesting to add or whatever, right? I want to say that I'm a big fan of you, both you and Leilani, and the team behind, of course. And I think you're doing a really good and important job. Yeah,
that's cool.
Thanks,
Leilani. You have to say something because you've never been to Karlskoga.
I have not yet, but super nice that you joined us today. And you know, my heart's in Sweden. We all know I'm actually part Swedish in some way, shape, or form. It's clear to me now. Thanks for joining. But I see that one of our listeners is a Canadian colleague and friend of mine, Tim Ross. I think he's still there. And I want to raise something about financialization of housing, something that he brought to my attention. And just so our listeners have some sense of the way this stuff can work. One of the big financial actors involved in all of this is pension funds. So pension funds directly and indirectly are purchasing residential real estate across the world. And for those who saw Push, you saw that I spoke with the South Korean pension fund. Well, South Korea is not the only pension fund active in this area. And in Canada, there's a small-ish, although big because they have money, pension fund that had ownership of cooperative housing out in the western part of Canada. And now they want to put it, actually they have put it, I believe, on the private market for sale. And the concern, of course, is that the people who are living in that cooperative housing, many of whom are paying affordable rents, will lose the affordability of their units upon sale. And the pension fund is saying, as I understand it, oh, don't worry about that. We'll make it a condition of the sale that whoever buys the property has to maintain these affordable units. And of course, me in my advocacy role, and I'm sure Tim is deeply concerned too, we're thinking, well, what kind of a contract is going to be crafted that can compel rents to stay affordable forever in perpetuity? No contract. And so pretty interesting stuff emerging.
Tim is out there. Tim is actually here. You can join us, Tim.
Oh, he's put himself as a speaker. So there you go. Tim Ross.
Hey there.
Not to put you on the spot, Tim.
Oh no, happy to be here. It's nice to do something spontaneous for a change. Yes. So thanks for hosting and for all the great work that you do. Leilani, you're right. It's what a world we live in when a pension fund owned by a union is selling human rights violations or potential human rights violations. The lease for this co-op, you're right, end on yesterday, and we are really hoping that the pension fund managers will find some heart and some common sense and make a deal with the province of British Columbia and the members of the housing cooperative to preserve the co-op tenure and the affordability of this co-op community and not sell it on the open market. There are actually members of this pension fund who are receiving the pension, who are members of co-op, who are senior citizens, who can't afford a big rent increase if another owner comes in and takes over this property. So it's, and you're right, as far as these commitments around these supposed commitments by the pension fund saying, oh, we'll find a buyer who commits to ongoing affordability. Well, show us a legal instrument that will do that. Exactly. And then, you know, but nothing's been disclosed to the public, and certainly nothing's been shared with the co-op members to alleviate their concerns. So more to come here. And as much as we will try our best to put a chill on any prospective buyer here, you know, if someone comes in from outside of Canada who doesn't give a damn about public opinion, well, we're in trouble.
Yeah, this is what happens. I actually saw now before the COP meeting that the fair finance movement, which is now a growing global movement, they have a call towards, you know, all the pension funds and all these investors who are like just sending out money into everything that just destroys the planet and violates human rights. So we should all have a look into what the Fair Finance movement is doing. And there is a call that you can actually resend today. But I see here also that we have Carol Tricoche. Tricoche?
Are you there,
yes,
Carol?
Yes, that's correct. I am.
Hey, where are you?
I'm from Portland, Oregon. And I've been following watched your film and then been following your podcast. And Portland, Oregon, seriously has a houseless situation. I feel like some things are progressing. They are, building the small villages and things. But I feel like the city, Commissioner Dan Ryan, is missing the crucial point of the financialization that's going on. And I don't know how to get to them to start to listen that the problem is only going to get worse if we don't start to control the housing market. That, yes, we have mental health issues that are going on and other things too, but the root of the problem is not being looked at. From what I'm seeing, it's like they're not seeing that. My son, 25 years old, lives in a house with 5 other 25-year-olds in order to afford to live here in Portland. That doesn't seem right.
It is not right. And this is like the situation of major cities all over North America and Europe. And we talked with somebody in Vietnam recently who has the same problem. But it's scary because especially in the US, you also see it on the streets.
Yes.
How is do you have a lot of homeless people in the streets of Portland also?
Yes, lots of homeless people. It's definitely a crisis at the moment. Just down the street, 2 blocks from me, there's a whole row of motorhomes that people live in tents. And it's everywhere. It's all over Portland. And I see that the Commissioner Dan Ryan, who's been assigned to helping with the housing situation, is working on building the small villages. And I commend that to get people off the street and give them a transitional place. But my point is that we're not looking at the root of the problem. We're not looking at as far as the housing market keeps going up, more and more people can't afford to live, and they can't afford to rent. They can't afford to purchase. The young people, my gosh, they can never afford to purchase. And I sit back and I look and I go, so everyone wants more wages, and I get that, which everything else trickles up and everything goes up. But to me, it seems like we need to start to look at managing the housing pricing, because if that's managed, then people can afford to live and purchase a home or rent a home with the salary that they make. But if we just keep piling on and on and on and on, it's never going to get anywhere. I feel really sorry for the young youth right now not being able to purchase. And myself, actually, I sold my house and now I'm renting right now and I can't even purchase right now. So there you go, But
that's right.
Anyways,
Carol,
I just wanted to share. Thank you so much for bringing this
Thank
awareness
you, Carol.
to us.
I think you raise a really good point, and one of the things that I've noticed recently is there is increased discussion about homelessness and houselessness as a problem, but the solutions never point to the actual root causes, including the financialization of housing and the unaffordability of housing in cities like Portland and all up and down the west coast of the U.S. And elsewhere within the U.S., of course. So, even the great piece John Oliver did the other day, it was great, and he's really raising awareness by putting out there the idea that houselessness is a huge problem in the U.S. and that even the liberals, and true blue Democrats are part of the problem. But where he didn't go was after those that are really skewing the market, the big institutional financial actors, and the need to rein them in. And enough is enough. He just didn't go there, unfortunately. But we need to start making those connections for our politicians and help them see these connections. If they don't see them, and sometimes they bury them, and so we have to unearth them. But I think we have other speakers, so we should probably. Frederick, I'm in your hands.
Thank you very much. I see Karina out there. I don't know where you are, but you seem to also speak Spanish. Are you there, Karina?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
Thank you.
Where are you calling from?
Well, I'm a Chilean, but I live in Malmö.
Qué buena combinación. Two good things in Chile and Malmo.
Yes, and I'm a PhD student at Malmö University. I actually am researching about unaffordability and how it is connected with actually residential mobility, how residential mobility can be read as an indicator or as an expression of unaffordability and the problems of actually the whole housing market.
So, and now you have Leilani, the global expert. So what do you have one really strong question for her that makes her something that you've been thinking a lot about, but you haven't really cracked yet? I mean, that's how I use Leilani.
I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions, but the thing is, maybe what hits me more strongly maybe is this idea that everything seems so set down. Everything seems too cemented and rooted, and this is. I sometimes I got the feeling that we are not like going anywhere with this discussion, and I don't know where to place where the problem is. And I feel that we from the research world, we are producing more and more information about it, and the information sometimes is overwhelming, but it's not reaching.
That's why we do films and podcasts, because we want to reach out. Thank you, Karina.
This is something that is really disturbing me, because this is when you talk with someone, sometimes with people that are maybe at the other side of the street, they say that it's not this is not something that we can solve with research, or we can't solve it with more information. And I feel that the problem is somewhere, I don't know. It is, of course, it's a political, and I don't know how to. I don't know. Maybe you have.
Karina, this is a very good question for Leilani. How can all this research be used? But before, we should just say, Delilah Rothenberg, hang on. We're going to go to you after Leilani's little answer here now.
Well, and maybe Delilah could answer that question too. But I think actually there is a lot of research, and there isn't enough research. I have to say that, because I think that there should be an audit of every city and every unit in every city, and a determination of who owns what in every city. I think that's absolutely important, and I think that would be incredibly revealing. And many cities haven't had such audits done. There are data journalists doing that kind of work, and I think that honestly that's so important to expose who owns our cities. From there, I mean, I think we've actually have started to make change. So I hope that you can find some inspiration from around the world. If you look to what's happening in Berlin, I mean, they are making huge strides. Look in Barcelona, some good changes. Ireland, it's become the hottest topic of debate. In Canada, our most recent general election, housing became the number one issue, or one of the top issues, and the political parties were forced to come up with more creative and ambitious attention on the housing crisis. So I do think things are moving. They're not moving fast, but change never happens fast.
Delilah, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
hear you.
welcome.
Oh, great.
And then Leilani knows you. I don't know you. You have to present yourself. So I want to be inside the circle.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you.
So,
Yeah, my name is Delilah Rothenberg. I'm based as of recently in West Palm Beach, Florida, although I'm a New Yorker prior to that. And I'm a huge fan of Leilani's work. I love this discussion, and all of the great perspectives that everybody's bringing. I jumped in because it struck me when somebody said that some of the residents in this building or this area in Canada that's being sold are actually the pensioners of the pension fund.
Yeah, that's a big story. This is affecting all of us. Also in my town, the pension funds are behind most of this big purchasing of residential housing, and the same in Berlin and all over the place. So because Blackstones and these guys, they're approaching the pension funds to get their money.
Yeah. So it occurred to me that it might be interesting to see what this particular pension fund outlines as its responsibilities and process in its investment belief statement and investment policy statement, and how that aligns with this idea that they might be having negative impacts for the pensioners. Because in the case of climate change, and there are parallel human rights abuses, one could argue, going on with pension funds and climate change, because if pension funds are financing fossil fuel companies and other heavy polluting industries that are having a negative impact on people, that might not be in line with what their stated goals are. And so there have been at least one, maybe more cases, pension funds are actually being, or investors are actually being sued for some of the negative impact they're having, and not sort of practicing what they preach. And so it might be interesting to look into, what does this pension fund say that it is supposed to do, and perhaps pursue a path of accountability that way if all else fails.
I think that's it's an interesting perspective, because this is happening also in many places around the world, where activists are using the courts to check on the powerful. It can be on I mean, in Paris, activists forced the government to back down on, because they didn't do enough on the climate change. In the Netherlands, activists were suing Shell oil company for not doing what they should. So I think it's a very interesting perspective to take them to court. Leilani, you are a lawyer.
Well, I don't know if Delilah was suggesting that, but she was suggesting that just even looking at, how does the pension fund put itself forward? What are the values the pension fund puts forward, and how do those align or not with the sale of this property on the private market? Especially the person, Tim Ross, who joined us to talk about this, said that an offer had been made by a government body to purchase the cooperative. That government body far more likely to keep it a cooperative and affordable housing. And the pension fund said, no, we want to put this on the private market. We don't want to sell this to you. And so I think that's what Delilah was suggesting. And what Delilah didn't reveal is that she has a long history working in the area of finance, and so knows what is persuasive amongst financial actors. So, Delilah, I'm going to bring this to Tim's attention, if he's not still on the line, to see if that might be persuasive.
I was just going to say, and thanks, Delilah, for raising that very point. On the union's website, on their about page for the pension plan, top line says Local 115 believes no senior who has spent their lives working should retire in poverty. So I don't know how this action is consistent with the top line of what they've publicized on their website, because that is the very real risk in these situations where pension funds sell housing or acquire housing assets and financialize them for a greater return on for their investors. So thanks very much for raising that, and the irony is not lost on us either.
Thank you. We are soon wrapping up, but there are some few people out there still that are calling in. We have my friend, Dr. Pacey Shaw at the University of Amsterdam. Are you there?
Hi, yes, I just joined.
Hi, hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Sorry about the noise. My two boys are just right next to me. But this is really a fascinating talk. I've only just joined, so I might have missed out a little bit at the beginning.
But you have seen Push, and you are now based in Amsterdam. So what do you see? What is your perspective on the story?
Well, I mean, in Amsterdam, as far as I know, one of the newest, it's a perennial issue, of course, but student housing is one of these things that is a real problem. And of course, in general, housing across the city is a huge problem. I only just moved here a couple of months ago, but already I'm quite attuned to all these problems of, the lack of housing, the lack of affordable housing, the role of private equity, private investment in the ownership of new housing spaces that have made, affordable housing impossible for a huge number of people across the city. And of course, house prices are just going crazy in the Netherlands, and especially in Amsterdam. So I feel like
Yeah.
this is an issue that's just, so embedded in sort of everyone's everyday experience across the city. It's hard to ignore.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sending me your book.
Your work. I'm really happy
I'm
for
glad
that.
you received it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Advocacy Watch. Who are you?
Hi, it's nice to see you. It's Kim. I'm from Leon, the Living and Lived Experience of Homeless Network.
Oh, hi,
welcome.
Kim. Finally, we meet you.
I know. It's so good to be here, and I got here late, and I just want to thank you for doing this. I have a question. I do frontline advocacy, and I've noticed a couple things. Like there's people who are in, and there's people who are out, and I'm now on the out. People who are living poor. The woman from Portland spoke to this a little bit. Like there's just, our voices are just not here. I'm really grateful I'm here. And I had a question about police pension funds. It's not even just a question. I guess it's more of we need to look into police pension funds. People here who are unhoused have been saying that they feel for some years now that somehow they might have their pension funds in housing.
If that's true, it's a big story. So keep researching, I would say. But Kim, I just must say that I admire your work, and you have a voice, and keep using it. And we actually placed this timing of this Twitter Spaces so you at the west coast of Canada could also take part. So thank you for getting up, even you're a bit late. It's okay.
And Kim, we appreciate your ongoing support. You've been so supportive of Push and Pushback Talks and our work, and of course, we're deeply supportive of your work. So we should connect around this police pension fund stuff. It could be pretty interesting.
Right on. Thank you. Look forward to it, and really appreciate the work you do.
Thanks.
I'm a little
Thank you.
concerned about how people seem to be not that interested anymore in rights, like human rights, like just everybody's rights. And I'm going to just say one quote before I say goodbye, and someone, I won't mention who it was, but somebody who's been really pushing against things like pushback and make the shift. And one of their quotes is, "When human rights get in the way of humans being right." So we are up against arrogant white supremacist system that is really trying to squish and like completely squish rights. So that's what we're up against. And police pension funds, we need to get on that. Thank you. I'll stop now.
Leilani,
Frederick,
this is not our podcast. This is. We know we have listeners in 120 countries, which is very cool, and we got a little bit of sense of it. I really like to hear voices of people. It gives me some energy back. Sometimes you go up and down in energy because both me and you are doing this podcast on top of everything. It's not something we make money out of, and we have to do other things to make money. So that's the days become sometimes a bit short or intense, but this gives me energy and makes me want to go on. Isn't that good?
yeah, and I feel the same way. And I liked what one of the speakers said, the spontaneity of this Twitter Live is kind of cool because you don't know who's out there and who cares and who's interested. And it's nice to hear from people around the world, especially given that our world is so small right now with this COVID. Although I have been released from my bunker. I am not in my bunker for once for our podcast.
You're in London with your sister. That's cool.
I am. It's very cool.
Yeah. You deserve it. You really deserve it. Anyway, so should we tell people how we actually fund this? Because we had this Swedish guy who will become a patron when he makes some money. For us, it will be like a sense of
solidarity.
Yeah, somebody likes us.
That's right.
So,
and you do that by going to our Patreon account, patreon.com, and look for Pushback Talks, and we're there.
That's how we roll.
Easy as 1, 2, 3.
And we can also count.
Sometimes.
Okay, friends, this was like a try of the Twitter Spaces, and I think we should do it again because it's interesting to see who shows up. And
I think so too.
I was waiting to see if Mark Schloss would show up, because he's one of our patrons, and he wrote a very interesting question about China, the bubble, the bursting bubble in China of real estate. Leilani, do you have a take on what's happened, the Evergrande story in China?
Well, I do. It's pretty interesting, Evergrande, because I mean, the government of China really promoted real estate and private actors in the real estate industry to build, and supply for the many agriculturalist population that were moving to the cities in China. And so they encouraged that on the one hand, and then once they started to sense that this was going sideways or really turning into a bit of a bubble, they implemented some regulations that made it very difficult for these actors to continue to borrow, and basically put a pin in the bubble, pricked the bubble. And so the question that Mark raised was, would other governments ever have the courage to do what the government of China did, in a way, which is to burst the bubble? So it's a fascinating conversation, but I commit to our audiences, we will do an episode on China sometime.
That's cool.
Soon.
That's a promise from the global director of The Shift and the co-host of Pushback Talks, Leilani Farah, normally in the bunker in Ottawa, but now in London. Okay, are we good? Shall we go out and celebrate life? Now we're actually on the same time zone almost. We can go for beers and say cheers.
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 Okay. Thank you very much. And soon we will be out with Pushback Talks again. We have more interesting guests coming up. So stay with us.
Thanks, Frederick. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Leilani. Thanks, team.
Pushback Talks is produced by WG Film. To watch Push, visit pushthefilm.com. You can also support us by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/pushbacktalks. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.